Isaiah 53, ESV. 1. Who has believed what he has heard from us? And to whom has the arm of the Lord been revealed? 2. For he grew up before him like a young plant, and like a root out of dry ground. He had no form or majesty that we should look at him, and no beauty that we should desire him. 3. He was despised and rejected by men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief, and as one from whom men hide their faces he was despised, and we esteemed him not. 4. Surely he has borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we esteemed him stricken, smitten by God, and afflicted. 5. But he was pierced for our transgressions, he was crushed for our iniquities, upon him was the chastisement that brought us peace, and with his wounds we are healed. 6. All we like sheep have gone astray, we have turned, every one, to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. 7. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. 8. By oppression and judgment he was taken away, and as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. 9. And they made his grave with the wicked and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth. 10. Yet it was the will of the Lord to crush him, he has put him to grief. When his soul makes an offering for guilt, he shall see his offspring, he shall prolong his days, the will of the Lord shall prosper in his hand. 11. Out of the anguish of his soul he shall see and be satisfied, by his knowledge shall the righteous one, my servant, make many to be accounted righteous, and he shall bear their iniquities. 12. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the many, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he poured out his soul to death and was numbered with the transgressors, yet he bore the sin of many, and makes intercession for the transgressors. Isaiah 53 is a prophetic passage in the Old Testament that describes a suffering servant who would bear the burdens of humanity and provide redemption. The passage is often interpreted as a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ and his sacrificial death on the cross. Verse 1 begins with a rhetorical question, emphasizing the disbelief and rejection of the message by many. It also mentions the revelation of the arm of the Lord, symbolizing God's power and intervention. Verses 2 and 3 describe the humble and unassuming nature of the servant, indicating that he would not have an outward appearance that would draw attention or admiration. He would be despised, rejected, and acquainted with grief, but people would fail to recognize his true worth. Verse 4 highlights that the servant would bear the griefs and sorrows of others, even though he would be considered as stricken and smitten by God. This suggests that his suffering would be on behalf of others, with a purpose beyond human understanding. Verse 5 is a powerful statement about the purpose and impact of the servant's suffering. It states that he would be pierced and crushed for our transgressions and iniquities, taking upon himself the punishment that we deserve. Through his wounds, we find healing and peace. Verse 6 emphasizes the collective nature of humanity's waywardness, likening us to stray sheep. It declares that the servant would bear the iniquity of all, indicating his role as a substitute and atonement for our sins. Verse 7 portrays the servant's submission to suffering, drawing parallels to a lamb being led to slaughter. Despite his oppression and affliction, he does not protest or defend himself, displaying a remarkable level of humility and surrender. Verse 8 reveals that the servant would be taken away by oppression and judgment, cut off from the land of the living, yet unrecognized for his sacrifice. His death would occur on behalf of the transgressions of the people. Verse 9 underscores the innocence of the servant, as his burial would be alongside the wicked, yet also with a rich man. This highlights the irony of his circumstances, as he would be associated with both the guilty and the affluent, despite his own blamelessness. Verses 10 and 11 speak of the servant's ultimate purpose and reward. Though he experiences anguish and grief, his sacrifice would result in the satisfaction of seeing his offspring and prolonging his days. Through his knowledge and righteousness, many would be accounted as righteous, and he would bear their iniquities. Verse 12 concludes by indicating that the servant would receive a portion with the many and divide the spoil with the strong. Despite pouring out his soul unto death and being counted among the transgressors, he would bear the sins of many and intercede for the transgressors. Overall, Isaiah 53 presents a powerful depiction of a servant who willingly takes on the burdens of humanity, suffers unjustly, and provides redemption through his sacrificial death. Many interpret this servant as a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ in his redemptive work on the cross, where he bore the sins of humanity to bring salvation to all who believe.